All right, Bigfoot!
Bigfoot!
If you watch Mountain Monsters, you know this creature. I know him from the Weekly World News where he would post his classifieds all the time talking about his foot size for some reason.
I
I don't
know
know.
him because he's my boyfriend.
True.
I know him because he's my ex-husband.
Cool. I mean, the Weekly World News was a tabloid. Was it in the 80s, though? I don't know. Oh, that's the Weekly World News. Yeah, we need to do an episode on the Weekly World News. Like, I need to buy like a stack of them and mail them to you guys. And
That would make me insanely happy.
yeah, we should do that. We should do that. I used to read it every week. That being said, we are here to talk about Max Brooks's Devolution. The latter half of it, of course. We did cover most of it. And how it maps to the Bigfoot mythos. We might get a little mean to old Bigfoot on this episode because there are reasons to be mean to Bigfoot.
Part of my researching was researching my favorite Bigfoot story, and in my research I found out it was all bullshit, and I'll mention that later, but
We will get there. We will get there.
It really did break my heart.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. I do want to say that Max Brooks' Devolution is a serious novel. It is very horrific. And, its goal, of course, is to highlight the hubris of, the Hollywood passive progressive, I say this to disparage, performative aspects of the left. So this part of the novel is where, after having seen the Bigfoot tribe, and assigning them names and so on, they don't know what to make of it. They're like, holy fuck, this is great. And they can't be calling anyone because a volcano just erupted and all their communications are down. So all these motherfuckers are sitting around listening to it. And I will read from the novel now. The more we listen, the more we could make out a single source. A branch against a trunk. I'm not sure if the grunts were meant for us. Something about them. Soft, low, chaotic. Like they didn't want their voices to drown out the knocks. That's at least what I think now. I don't have a clue. I didn't have a clue at the time. That's communication, Vincent surprised me. I would have expected it from Reinhardt. I looked over at him, the gas-bag professor, who was, amazingly, yielding the floor. Vincent stepped out of the circle, head craned toward the trees. They're trying to talk to us! They're friendly, said Reinhardt, who I think was trying to get a jump at the next possible conclusion. They must be! Communication implies intelligence! Which implies an innate desire for peace. Is that true? The Booths seemed to believe it, or wanted to, along with Carmen and Effie, but Palomino, the little girl, she kept her eyes locked on Mostar's dubious face. Now, Palomino previously had almost been eaten by a puma, and saved by Mostar, so she's like, yo, this Bosnian woman, she knows what the fuck is up, Yeah, so the one idiot starts yelling, hello, hello, we're friends, into the wilderness. And the Bigfoots, they stop knocking, and then they start knocking really fucking hard. Dock, 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 dock.
I just love the statement, communication implies intelligence, because I've heard a lot of people talk, and no, it doesn't.
Yeah, I live with people that can communicate who don't want peace. Like, I live on the internet. Nazis communicate with us just fine.
Like, a lack of communication does not imply non-intelligence. I work with adults with developmental disabilities. I have several who are nonverbal, don't know ASL, and choose not to use a communication device. They're still intelligent.
Yes.
They're still human fucking beings.
Yeah. So after the knocking, they start throwing rocks. And they start throwing big rocks, and all these idiots go running for their lives because those Bigfoots, they're not friends. They seem surprised that it happened.
God, I love the Bigfoots in this book. Of the volcano, but like, I loved the Bigfoots.
I love them too. They're really cool. By the way, so I did a little bit of reading when I first read this book, and I found that the knocking on trees is a thing. Tell us about that. Anyone? No one knows about Bigfoot's banging on trees. Okay.
I actually, in all my research, I haven't seen. I'm an expert in the Native American associations, uh, specifically that side of history. I'm an expert in racism. Feel free to quote that.
Okay. That's a clip. Yeah.
That's the ad right there. I'm
I'm
an
so
expert in
glad that
racism.
my actual real face is associated and I didn't put on the mask to say that. Uh, the only things I can pull out of that is a lot of Native American tribes, which I can only speak for, well, actually, no, I can't speak for anything. I am familiar with various Native American tribes communicating with various calls that white people go, and it was like frightening. And they're communicating with bird calls. And it's like,
Right.
well, maybe it's just not a language that you speak. Have you considered this?
I think the thing about banging on trees, also just like in nature, is many a creature has a communication that says, like, don't come any closer, stay away from me. I am gonna fuck you up. And I'm thinking about, I'm from New Hampshire, so I hear a lot of stories of moose. And if you hear a moose scraping its antlers on a tree, like, leave. It's similar to if you're standing near a horse and it's stomping its foot really hard at you. Leave. It's, you know? It's like there's this universal sign of, yeah, if I see any kind of great ape and it starts banging on a tree, I'm out. I
People
mean, if
think
I
the
see any
world
kind of great ape, I'm out, but
people think the world exists for their benefit, you know. So there is a bit here about chimpanzees. Not all chimps throw rocks for dominance in West Africa. Primatologists recently observed them hurling stones against trees. No one knows why. There's a theory that it's some kind of sacred ritual for some yet undiscovered goal. And this is a hypothesis, not a theory. Personally, I couldn't care less why they do it, just that they do. It shows me rocks have multiple functions, and we can't be sure what all those functions are. If some chimps use stones in their monkey hunting tactics, and those tactics are being used by some of their larger North American cousins, like Bigfoot, then both the Mount St. Helens attack and the bombardment of Greenloop weren't meant to drive the humans away, but to drive them out into the open.
That's a fun quote.
Yes.
That is a hunting
Well,
method used by, sorry, I'm such a nerd. Uh, that's a hunting method used by ancient humans, was in order to tackle these big giant prey items like mammoths, you would herd them off of a cliff, uh, which is badass, I think.
yeah, I think that's true. I think that we found that there wasn't like any there isn't any like evidence of it. I know Justin was telling me something about that, but yeah, herding animals into a kill zone is like even if it wasn't off of a cliff, it is effective. So yeah, it's specifically the cliff thing that I'm a little iffy on.
Fair enough.
But
I don't have a source for that. John Pickrell did not say that.
what'd you say, Adrian? Yeah, graboid's not Bigfoot, Adrian. You're not allowed to talk about graboid. There's a really cool part where the Bigfoots get one of them and they see him out there yelling in pain. And I'll read this. Okay. He's hurt. Bobby looked incredulously at Mustar, then to Dan. He needs help. I saw Dan wiggle his arm slightly, pulling at Mustar's grip. Testing? She wouldn't budge. That's what they want. It took me a second to realize what she meant. Suddenly, I wanted to throw up everything I'd eaten. Dan got it. I saw his shoulder sag. Carbon and Reinhardt, too. Not the shoulders, but the understanding. But Bobby, they! What they? You can't hear them. Can't you smell them? Asked Mustar. Even with the wind at our backs, the stench was overpowering. They're keeping quiet on purpose. They want to draw us out, pull us apart. The way her eyes squinted, flicking from side to side. Sniper trick. So it goes on for a bit, but eventually the Bigfoots get kind of tired of it, and they just come out and grab him and tear him apart. It's pretty fucked.
I think it's really important to go back to the fact that Mustar survived like a very brutal war where her family, like, at one point she said a quote that like really stuck with me was that we were so starved we told the children not to go out at night or they'd be caught and eaten, and that's not the worst reason to not let a child go out at night in a war zone. And that's the kind of upbringing Mustar has seen. It reminds me of like stories my grandma told me as a kid of like, if you're at home and you hear a baby crying, don't go outside because it could be a kidnapper playing a recording to get you to come out for it. Stories from actual wars of people being used as bait, and Mustar has like seen this before and is now seeing it again, and it's just very fucked up. It's one of the things about the book that really fucked me up was that I've heard these examples,
That character is here to plant the seed that these people all think they're hyper evolved because they have the internet and drones to deliver their groceries and all this stuff. And what do? Like, human civilization is killing other humans. I mean, it's happening right now. There's people laughing at other people crying for bread in Gaza. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing more human than war and murder and cannibalism.
And that's what it makes me think of is, are these Bigfoots primitive apes? Because they're acting the way people act.
Right. Exactly.
They are doing the things that people do.
Adrian,
which is the ape,
Right. Adrian, do you have to go? Okay. It's 4:50. All right. Is there anything you want to leave us with?
It was
All
nice
right.
to meet you.
Love you.
All right, I'll do your plug. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna write a note for myself. Take care, okay? I'll talk to you later. All right. We're a very professional podcast, and we're very good singers here.
The most professional.
Yeah. Oh, are you fucking kidding? Look at us. Yeah. So, all right. Where do we want to go next? I don't know. Apes go crazy. Blah blah blah. Yeah. So, yeah, and that's the key thing. Who are the real apes, right? And like that brings me back to the Rousseau's Children book, where you know what ends up happening is Mustar starts showing our main character how to make spears because she's like, we're not going to survive this. She sends her on a little quest to start categorizing all the food they have, all the potatoes, all the little bits of meat, everything in the
And
fridges.
the sauces and spices.
Sauces and spices, because she explains to her, we're rationing our food because we might not live 2 more weeks. When you ration food, when you diet, you eat less because you want to. When you ration your food, you eat less because you fucking have to. And yeah, they make spears. How to make a spear from scratch. This is from the book. Choosing the right bamboo staff is critical. It can't be tapered. That'll ruin the balance. When harvesting the stalk, you saw just below the bottom connector, or whatever those rings are called. It takes a while, especially with a skinny bread knife. And there's a special method. If you go down one side, like with regular wood, and miss just a tiny bit of connecting fiber, the fiber will tear a strip down the whole length. As Mastar warns, that will decrease integrity and increase splinters. It goes on for some length, and the point is that they make spears. They make actual spears, and these aren't like, man, I don't know. I think that like we think of weapons such as the Zulu or the native peoples of North America or even South America would have used, like the Jack. What's the oh, the Macawaddle, like the Aztec Macawaddle. Like we might think about it like, oh, it's this low tech, like fucking primitive caveman shit. They're actually made with
Incredibly.
a lot of. What'd you say?
I was agreeing with you. Sorry. They're
No, you're okay. They're
incredibly high.
made with a lot of in craftsmanship, and they have to be balanced correctly. The blade has to be sharpened, forged correctly. The metal has to be forged correctly. The spear has to be, the shaft has to be polished and made for throwing or thrusting. There are different kinds. And that's why Max Brooks goes into such detail about how to make a spear. Because all that fucking technology is gone. These people don't even have guns. They went up here to live in harmony with the trees and birds and fucking squirrels. And boom, the internet's out. Can't order your you can't order your Hungry Man cans. You know what I mean? You can't order your fucking TV dinners. And guess what? There's hungry things out there that want to eat you. They're Bigfoots here, but it could just as easily be bears or anything real. And the only way to survive is to fight back. That's kind of what it boils down to. They literally have to devolve from their perspective. Um,
It's
If only that was referenced in the title of the book.
I've been really into survivalist horror lately, so I was actually super glad for this recommendation. I watched Yellow Jackets and I just went, wow, I loved this show. I wish it was good.
Whoa, shots fired, man. Whoa.
It's fine. Yellow Jackets is fine. But I actually didn't know all of the intricacies of building a spear. You know why? Because I am not devolved. I live in 2025 and I love my car and my Instacart. The closest I've come to survivalist horror was I moved to a very rural area and had to learn how to buy enough groceries to last me to the next time I would want to go buy groceries. Um but like I think it's one of those things where, like, people will be sitting on their couch, covered in popcorn, watching Yellow Jackets or 28 Days Later or what have you about, this apocalyptic scenario, and they'll say, I could do that. And I think it was the creation of the spear that made me go, I could not. Yeah, like, yes, before I read that book, I was like, I could make a spear. I could go outside my yard and make a spear right now. No, no, I couldn't.
Yeah,
The answer is no.
it's very involved.
If there's one
Right.
thing Max really knows, it's his history, and it's getting rid of the I can do that of it all.
Jack, what do you want to say?
I just wanted to bring up an example of, we mentioned Native American weaponry. I was just recently in Tennessee for a family trip and I was refamiliarized. I've learned about making arrowheads several times. And they're seen as a relatively primitive weapon because it's a rock. Effectively, it's a piece of flint. But there is an entire set of tools for making these arrowheads, and it takes years and years of practice and expertise to actually get the shape you want. You're effectively, when you're making an arrowhead, you're chipping glass, and you have to know exactly how much pressure to apply, exactly where to chip it to get the shape that you want. It's not as easy, or I honestly think it's incredibly, what's the word? It's incredible craftsmanship to be able to make an arrowhead. In summary, that shit's hard.
I
Yeah,
have never looked at an arrowhead and said I could do that, but
you know, Me and my little brother, we once broke a window and we had to buy a pane of glass that turned out to be too big. And then we had to cut the glass. So we bought a glass cutter thinking it was easy, and it was not easy.
Wow.
It sucked.
I'm taking a stained glass class in about a week, and I'm fully expecting to get whooped.
Get some good gloves.
It's difficult to do things, in summary. But thankfully, we're good at doing podcasts, so there's that at least.
Yeah, we can do
Right.
podcasts.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, I can
I'm
do.
great at making podcasts.
It's advanced technology.
I'm great at reading horror books and judging the main characters.
The main character in this book is pretty good. She listens to the one person that knows what's up, and she lives. Well, actually, she doesn't, but she gets pretty far.
Hey, spoiler.
I really thought I was gonna dislike her based off of the nature of the story. Like, I was like, oh, great, like a rich girl who wants to get with nature, writing this book as a journal letter to her therapist. This is gonna get old. But I found myself pleasantly surprised, especially by her, like, self-awareness throughout the book.
Her humility.
Yeah, like, when Mustar was like, we're gonna start rationing food, and I'm gonna have you do it because you're a skinny white girl who probably knows the calories of everything within a 5-mile radius of you. And she was just like, you're right, I am a skinny white girl who knows the calories of everything within 5 miles of me. I'll do that. And then when she makes the ration plan and makes it wrong, Mustar's like, hey, you gave the biggest people the most food. You should get the most food because you're the thinnest. She was like, yeah, that makes sense. So, like, she had a lot of humility. She had a lot of self-awareness. I liked her. I liked her as a main character.
There's a bit here. Obviously I don't support the state of Israel or its horrific genocide of the Palestinian people. But there is a bit here from Golda Meir's daughter, right? From her book, I believe. My Life in the IDF by Lieutenant Colonel Hannah Reinhardt Roth. So, and I think it's really important. It's about the need for armed resistance at times, which is a very uncomfortable topic, especially when we're talking about, what we're supposed to do in the face of political malfeasance and, injustice, right? I mean, all of us are queer on this podcast.
Bisexual.
I mean, we probably are. Everyone's bisexual, but like my point to a certain degree. But my point is, we're all queer people. We all have to grapple with what this administration is doing and what future administrations will do and what previous administrations have done, which gives us, reason to be frightened, right? So, with that in mind, let's read the words of Golda Meir's daughter. Alex spluttered. But America, I'd won, I knew it. America, I buried him in counterpoints. Vietnam, Watergate. The inward distractions of cultural civil strife. Alex huffed, retreating from my onslaught. If I'd only been magnanimous in victory and refrained from that conclusive nail. America can't help us. Just 2 words, 1 word. Just 2 letters, 1 word. Us? The resurgent flames blazed in Father's eyes. Us? Hannah, aren't we Americans? American Jews, I countered, regrouping before those smug, tranquil faces. Haven't we learned anything from our past? Mused Father, pretending to ponder my point. Learning is indeed the key, learning to understand ourselves. Political economy, Alex added, winning an approving smile from our patriarch. Biology, psychology. Without unearthing the roots of our desire for conflict, Father lectured, we are no better than pre-Pasteur physicians who acknowledge the existence of microbes, yet fail to connect their existence to disease. It goes on some bit, right? But the big part is, eye for an eye, my father continued, only leaves the world blind. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me read this, actually, because this is important. Okay, I'm saying, I shot back, that it's suicidal to waste time deconstructing the Versailles Treaty the morning after Kristallnacht. My father, still sitting, smiled an insufferable, victorious curl. Ah, he said, waving his infuriating finger to the sky. And now we come to the final keep in your crumbling fortress. Should we have fought? It was an old argument. The first time I'd been 6, asking about the black and white faces on our mantel. Who were they? Where is Strasbourg? Why did they die? Why didn't they leave with you? Why did they die in the Holocaust? And with the final question, why didn't they fight back? Came the inevitable dismissal, because it would not have made a difference. An eye for an eye, my father continued, only leaves the world blind. I parried his Gandhi quote with another saying from the Raj. If the Indians all pissed at once, the British would be washed out to sea. Are you dismissing nonviolence? Said Alex, shaking his head. Are you really going to deny the progress made in this country by Dr. King? Are you going to deny that King's leverage was based on the fear of Malcolm X? An open hand works when the alternative is a fist. So they go on, you cannot simultaneously prevent and prepare for war, quote from Einstein, said the man fleeing Dachau's oven, such a zealot. You claim to defend our tradition. So it goes on for some while. But, the point remains is that, at a certain point, you have to stand your grounds or the Bigfoots will eat you, Because that's where this book goes, Needless to say, spoilers, I suppose. I mean, it's a hell of a read. It's a hell of a read, but that's ultimately where things go, right? Our heroes are forced to forget about the internet, forget about all their high-minded ideals and, culture and all the good they think they're bringing to the world, because in their minds, by doing Green Loop, and they're showing people how to live, and there's a bit where they're like, not everyone can afford to live in a Green Loop, but we're going to be recycling in junk. They'll be able to afford the stuff that is made to market to us.
Oh, that part made me so mad.
Yeah, it's like capitalism is good because the poor asses can afford the detritus of the rich. Trickle-down economics is legit.
I regularly whine about how the rich do not deserve the bullshit rich people stuff they have, and how much more I could do with a Prius than they could. Because I drive my Prius to protests, and I drive my Prius to make art. That part just made me think of all of those moments where I've been like, if only I had the really nice thing, I would be changing the world with it.
Listen, you can't just go back to nature and live a simple life. You have to spend millions of dollars on a house with the internet and a drone, they all have their own personal drone. It's not like there's a drone.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
It makes me so mad. And
so
honestly,
funny.
I know that realistically I could not change the world if I had a solar powered house under Mount Rainier. But what if?
The ancient Greeks, they had a saying, give me a lever and a place to stand and I'll move the world. So I think we can move off reading from the book at this point. It is a very good book. It is very dark. It is very, very, very horrific. It brings to mind some of the cannibal movies of the 70s and 80s. It brings to mind Dracula and Max Brooks' first novel, of course, World War Z, which was also epistolary. And, look, I mean, it's a monster book. It turns Bigfoot into a flesh-eating, thinking, planning monster who gets away with it, which is the best part. Jack, why is Bigfoot sucky? Why do we hate Bigfoot?
So,
even though we love monsters.
I don't have anything against Bigfoot hunters. I want to put that out there. Bigfoot is fun to believe in. It's a fun story. The reason I have so many problems with it is the same reason I have problems with the commercialization of the Wendigo and skinwalkers. It's that Bigfoot is something that you can't really separate from Native American culture. Not only is it something that Bigfoot hunters are constantly looking towards Native American cultures to justify, which I will, quick tangent. When I was a lad, a small little man, smaller than I am now, we went to a Bigfoot museum in Georgia. And this was the moment where I stopped liking Bigfoot because there was this entire wall of Native American names for Bigfoot, an entire wall dedicated to it. And one of my sources that I have been researching specifically for this video. And another one of the reasons why I'm not super big into Bigfoot is a book entirely about all these Native American names for Bigfoot. And I was going to look it up, but I'm in the middle of a tangent, so I'm not going to give you the title right this second. But looking up at that wall, I'm Cherokee. My heritage is important to me. Um, and I go, there's a Cherokee name for Bigfoot. The name on that board was Ustili. Ustili? Ustili, I believe. Yeah, Ustili. I'm pronouncing that wrong.
That's fine.
This Cherokee name for Bigfoot directly translates to foot snake. And his entire thing was he was a snake that had feet.
So not a furry man that lived in the wilderness and
No,
still
a
can't
snake with feet.
a snake with
Yes, large feet. The snake did have large feet. And in his story, he is so ugly because he's a snake with feet that the snakes are like, you're so ugly. We hate you because you have feet. So he turns into a human and marries the daughter of a chief. And that's the story. That's our Cherokee Bigfoot. Effectively, it's the ugly duckling with foot
that's.
snake.
I mean, that's a little more exciting than Bigfoot, but it's not Bigfoot.
And that's kind of the moment where I got, what's the word? When you meet your heroes? Disillusioned. Thank you.
The glass breaking moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I haven't been a huge fan of it. And the more that I look into Bigfoot, we take the name Sasket from the Salish language. Whole bunch of Native American tribes speak that language. The Saskets are figures in this tribe. And you know what? They are wild men. But let's look closer. The Sasket were described as a tribe of more like barbarian natives that wore clothes and spoke. And sometimes they would kidnap women and children because they didn't have any women and children in their tribes. And you know what? That was problematic. It was
Yeah.
It was another tribe.
It was another tribe. That's what I was going to interject with. It was just another tribe. It's like all these Irish stories about these weird pre-human like creatures that had heroes and all. It's just older tribes, right?
Yeah. And then you go into the Yoket people, and the Yoket people have Hairy Man. And this is a figure that a lot of Bigfoot hunters have latched onto because it's Hairy Man. And this Hairy Man is which, by the way, it is worth clarifying that when it comes to the term hairy man in Native American cultures, more typically that is a person with long hair, like on the top of their head. That's just typically, we have a tribe in the Cherokee culture that their defining feature is they have long hair. Anywho, the hairy man is a tribe of spiritual people that can walk in the physical and spiritual worlds. They have the power to transform and speak and heal. And they're not Bigfoot. In fact, they are very specifically not Bigfoot. They are so not Bigfoot that the Yoket people get really pissed off. They don't want Bigfoot hunters using their iconography. They are specifically, there have been interviews with them. Mr. Trey the Explainer on YouTube did actually interview a Yoket representative who was like, yeah, that's not Bigfoot, and we really wish people would stop saying it was. This is our religious figure, and we aren't going to tell you the actual name that we have for them because it's our religious figure. Not your business. Not your circus, not your Bigfoot. So I'm not super into Bigfoot just for those reasons. There's also in my research, Uh, I was looking for the original documentations of Bigfoot, and I had the article pulled up. Let me see, because I lost it. Obviously, we've had the Mountain Devil story. I would argue that that is closer to the original. 58 was supposedly the birth of the modern version of the mythical wild man. That was an article from the Humboldt Times talking about a letter from readers about loggers in Northern California who found mysteriously large footprints. That's where we get the name Bigfoot. And when I was reading this original article, this article was by Andrew Ginizoli of Humboldt Times. What stood out to me was that uh, Mr. Ginzoli, I could mispronounce any word. When he was writing about it, one of the things that he mentioned was the native tribe in the area, which a century beforehand, 1860, the loggers in this area attacked them during a festival, massacred them, and then called the U.S. Army, who took this tribe, which I'm getting the actual name of the tribe because that is important to me, the Hoopa. Took them, put them on the Hoopa Indian Reservation. And then in this location, there's all these stories like, oh, there's some mythical creature that's messing with our stuff. Just really interesting to me that all these stories about Bigfoot attacks seem to have such close connections to, what is the word, friction with local native populations.
It somewhat makes me think of, not to say this is the same situation, but the cannibals in the Appalachian Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
There are no cannibals in the Appalachian Mountains. What there are is a bunch of people making moonshine who don't want you to go fuck with them making moonshine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a persistent trope in like horror movies. You have the Wrong Turn series, you have all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, if you're from the area, especially if you like have like an older relative, they'll tell you all these stories about like when I was a kid we had a well. My papa used to say there was a man who lived in the well and his name was Rawhead and Bloody Bones. And if I was up past my bedtime or looked into the well, Rawhead and Bloody Bones would come eat me. Obviously, he was saying that to me because he didn't want me to fuck with the well. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many times that when there is something that people don't want other people to find or fuck around with, there becomes a big scary monster there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is very on point. When we did our Santa Claus episode, I talked about the wild man hypothesis that there was a persistent myth across cultures going back at least 1,000 years of cultures talking about wild men, and this going all the way back to, of course, the fair folk. Don't go into the Cotswolds. You might get stolen by fairies, and at a certain point, yeah, there might well have been Celtic peoples that the Romans and the Danes hadn't killed off, living off the land. And hence a lot of these fairy stories. If Adrian was here, she might yell at me again. I don't remember if she did, but I feel like she wouldn't like that. But it doesn't really matter, because I think that there is something to that, right? All these encounters with Native Americans and people who, as far as we know, are unknowable, right? And I say we as in colonizers. Jack, you are of Native heritage. I am Jewish. I'm like fourth generation. I wasn't there, but if I was there, right, I probably would have fallen into the culture because I would have been living in one of these settler towns and running into Native peoples or fearing them, right? So,
And I want to clarify, I wasn't raised in the culture. Amazing thing when you take out a third of a population, which I'm not going to get into blood quantum and all of that bullshit on our episode right now. We're not going to touch it. But I wasn't raised in the culture either. I just do a lot of research because I have that personal tie to it. But it only goes as far as blood and the tribal card.
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
but like I said, I'm a Bigfoot lover, but like I can totally see the connection to, problems happening with the indigenous tribes and going, big scary black monster in the woods.
right.
I'm seeing it now and I'm like, oh, Bigfoot, are you problematic?
And that
I'm so
said,
sorry.
that
Nothing will
said,
ever take away my love for Bigfoot, but
Not even racism.
so
you
we're gonna
know,
have this.
there's there
God,
there 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 is the racist aspect. There is also the aspect of like, I mean, yes, there is the racism, and I'm not denying that there is definitely probably a lot of racism. There's also something to be said for like respect for nature and believing that I don't know everything about it.
sure, we're gonna have this conversation a lot. We've had it a few times, but me and Adrian had a moment where she didn't know that Nosferatu was an early example, not an early example, but a pretty prominent example of anti-Semitism in art. She didn't know that Count Orlok was a Jewish stereotype with his long nose, his rat-like features, his ears, his rat teeth. The fact that he comes to a culture that is not his own and infects it with his Jewishness, I mean vampireness. He steals their women, like, and she had a nervous breakdown about this, and our conversation was basically like, look, that is its legacy, but it's also a monster, and it's something else, and it's been taken and repurposed and lives on in a new form. That's art. Art is a conversation.
I
Things are
am
deep.
I am interested to know more of the indigenous Bigfoot connections because, like I said, like being of like an Appalachian family, a lot of Appalachian folklore is admittedly just ripped off indigenous folklore. But it's also something that can be so unique and dear to us,
Right. That's where
which
you live.
yeah, it's where we lived. Like it's there's things in Appalachian folklore that I have a lot of problems with, particularly the appropriation of the Wendigo. But
Jack
also,
talks
I can
about a lot.
understand why the people who were forced to work in coal mines that regularly collapsed would attach to such a creature. And I think Bigfoot, for me, is this example of like this kind of unique cryptid, like creature to the United States, in that almost every single state has a Bigfoot myth. Like, if you look into people, like the cryptids of every state, almost every single state has their own variation of Bigfoot. And I think it's something special that there is a big, hairy, scary man in the woods. Whether it be the hairy man you were describing, or my friend Bill Jim, who's just basically a giant lumberjack and would definitely run at people and bang his chest and scare them away. I think there's just something so special about the big, hairy, scary man in the woods. That being said, I have been having to accept some harsh realities about Bigfoot, like finding out he's racist today. Well, not finding
Again,
out he's racist, but
so
Bigfoot
let's
himself called in to tell us he's racist.
rude. But like when I was researching this episode, one of my things that I've loved, like this story I've fixated on for so long, was Portlock, Alaska. And when you love a story like that, you don't look at its ugly roots. And the fact is like the story is that there was this town in Alaska that is a ghost town, and that is true. There is an abandoned town in Alaska called Portlock. And the story was always that people were like going into the woods and turning up mutilated, and some explorers had even seen, like, people who were like urbexing there even saw this big Bigfoot type creature. And while I was researching it, the more I found there was no evidence of mutilated bodies turning up at any point. And the town was, for better or worse, abandoned because a rich man bought it out.
Yeah, that explains a lot.
Something about
Honestly,
building a highway system. And I was like, oh my god, my favorite Bigfoot. What?
fucking pathetic. Again, I'll reiterate, like, H.P. Lovecraft, horrifically problematic, racist piece of garbage, wrote some of the greatest, like, horror stories of all time, changed the world from his aunt's basement, right? Also, many of those stories are incredibly problematic. However, his characters and fixtures and settings have been taken by other people and repurposed. Some of them Jews. Go ahead.
It's like, that's why it's so important that we do our jobs. Like,
Yeah.
we, the queer people, the Jewish people in your case, the indigenous people in your case, like, we have these old problematic stories that we can take now and say, yeah, this Nosferatu was incredibly anti Semitic, but I can turn him into something empowering. Count Dracula at many times was a very predatory gay man, but when I write Dracula intentionally gay, it creates a new lore.
Creates a new lore,
And that's
exactly.
something I love about the way lore like that is ever shifting.
It recontextualizes it. I mean, what's stopping me from writing a Dracula story or Nosferatu story rather, where he's more or less the victim? I mean that's how he's treated in the '70s Werner Herzog movie. My final thought on Bigfoot is just that he's an American icon. And much like another American icon, Hulk Hogan, he's racist, he's cringy, he's embarrassing, his face is on beers, and he makes me laugh.
I
He's a
think
real
you're just
American.
making me hate Bigfoot.
Yeah, sorry.
I
You
say
know,
I have a Hulk Hogan VHS in my room right now, but
I've got him too. My bubby, her late husband fucking used to record all the SummerSlams and stuff that they would pay for, and now I
I
just have
got
them.
one. I got one for $4 the other day at like a VHS seller at a con I was at, and I was like, Hulk Hogan's not gonna make any money off of this, and it's gonna be the best gag gift ever.
Oh yeah, brother.
But
You
now I
better
have
believe
just
it.
like Hulk Hogan. Now I'm like, but the guy who bought that thinks I like Hulk Hogan. So then I had to like say while I was buying it, like, oh, this is gonna be a great gag gift.
He was a great wrestler. He was a terrible, terrible human being, and he was shitty to other wrestlers too. So fuck him.
Yeah.
He picked the worst week to die too. This is all getting cut, so it's okay. But he picked the worst week to die. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne dies, and we're like, oh man. And then fucking the Hulkster kicks in, and it's like,
Then Chuck Mangione like 10 minutes later.
yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, like, I'm in my 30s, so I've kind of accepted that people I grew up watching on TV are gonna die. You know, like since Bowie died, the world ended in 2016 when Bowie died, and this is all just a weird dream. So all right. Is there anything else to say about Mr. Bigfoot and his, well, as the as his classified profile in the Weekly World News said, all that big feet, indicate, anything else to say about Mr. Big Feet?
I think it's really beautiful what he can be. Obviously, I'm not personally fond of the culture. I'm not going to hold that against Bigfoot, and I don't hold that against individual Bigfoot hunters. I just have problems with, believe it or not, I have problems with, okay, I can lose my word. I'm going to
I mean,
repeat it
shut
so you can edit it and it sounds really cool. That thing where you steal culture from another
Appropriation.
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 Do you want to do
Uh,
that again?
yes, I do. Believe it or not, I do have a problem with native culture appropriation, but I do think it's beautiful what he can be when you separate that. Stop getting
And
tattoos of the hairy man, please. They
thank
don't
you
want me to do that.
for like taking the time to educate about that during this episode, because like I figured that like the term Sasquatch was probably appropriated, but I had no idea how deep that ran, and I will be doing my research on it before I get a Bigfoot is real and he tried to eat my ass tattoo.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that is probably a good idea. Shout out to Robert Brockway's fucking podcast, Big Feats, and Sean Baby, where what they do is they watch episodes of Mountain Monsters and they just talk about how amazing, because Mountain Monsters has a universe. Like it's not like a normal show. Like they have continuity and there's like stuff that happens. Multiple Bigfoot species will show up to team up and take them on. Like, it's a crazy fucking show. Like, there's an episode where the Bigfoots have them surrounded. They're in and this is also supposed to be a reality show. They have them surrounded in a barn, and the Bigfoots start pounding on the wall, and then the wall gives out, and like a rubber gorilla arm grabs the one guy and tries, and it's like, you just got Bigfoot on camera! You broke it! You pushed it too far! There's a part where they're talking to some hillbilly, and he says, yeah, it was the dog man. He come around here. And then one of the guys goes, I know him.
I know
I
personally.
know him.
He
Did he steal your truck? Like, did he date your daughter? Like, yeah, so highly recommend Mountain Monsters. Highly recommend Big Feats, even though, as per J.R.R. Tolkien, it would be Bigfoots, because there's the one Hobbit. Bilbo calls the Proudfoot people the Proud Feets. Yeah, remember that? And he's like, proud foots, not proud feets, so. Oh no, he says proud feet, actually. Wait, oh, fuck. Oh well, whatever. Well, no, Bilbo says proud feet, and I trust Bilbo because that's Tolkien's character, so whatever. Anyway, that being said, any final thoughts on Bigfoot before we wrap up?
Loki, if I send you a link, will you send it to Luca? Because I don't exist on the internet anymore.
Absolutely. You can call me Dan too if you'd like. That's
Okay.
perfectly acceptable. I will allow that.
Dad, can you send a link to Luca?
appreciated.
Of course. Did you send it in the chat here?
No, I was going to do it afterwards because it's much
Oh, are you gonna
easier
text
for
me?
me to. Yes.
Okay,
Much easier for me to.
Yeah. I'll get it to Luca, no problem. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
It's a great documentary. You're going to love it. We go into the 157 Native American names for Bigfoot that are wrong.
I can't wait.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, in conclusion, Max Brooks' Devolution is a great book. It's very horrific. It's very interesting. It's very thought-provoking. It will definitely dash any hopes you have of living off the land in a modern, ecologically conscious way, because it's really not doable in the long term, and it's really not that considerate. And all you motherfuckers ordering shit from Amazon every week, you're not helping anyone by not driving. So, Also, Bigfoot is kind of problematic. I still think he's rad, but he's kind of problematic. So do keep that in mind. But that is our episode on de-evolution and Bigfoot. So Luca can be found at the Instagram listed below, and he is a poet and writer, has a new book called With Endless Love, poems inspired by 28 Days Later. The cover is awesome. If you're watching this on YouTube, there it fucking is. It's gorgeous. What else? Yeah, you can get that book from his Ko-fi or by messaging him on Instagram. So do support him. We here at Death Wish Poetry Magazine and the Demon Test Podcast are very supportive of our independent writers. I'm an independent writer myself, so do support independent artists and writers. I am, of course, King Loki. That's Old Norse for Daniel Sokoloff. You can find my books and writing at demonlandbooks.com. Check out Deathwish Poetry Magazine. Also, we are opening up for submissions for the fall edition. I can't keep track. Soon, so, follow us on Instagram. Read our stuff. It's very cool. Luka has 2 poems in the spring edition. They're wonderful. Well, wonderful's the wrong word. One of them is about a just read them. Just read them.
Just read them.
Just
Or
read them.
maybe don't if you're really upset by snuff films. But
There are trigger warnings, so
yeah, there
know what
are
you're getting
trigger
into.
warnings. Read the trigger warnings.
Read trigger warning.
And Jack is he is the daddy of a spider named Jack Jr.
I am.
He
I
keeps sending me.
I
He keeps
customized a
sending me.
Furby.
What'd you say?
I customized a Furby.
Yeah.
You did?
I did. Look at my Furby.
Oh my
Aw.
god, I love that.
Oh, his eyes light up. That's wonderful.
She's not technically done. She's supposed to have another wing, but she's beautiful.
Okay. What's her name? Does she talk?
No, she does not. She is broken.
Oh, well. I'm glad that you're taxidermying that poor creature. I'm
Me
glad you're
too.
giving it new life.
It's important.
Yeah. Jack also likes to send me killer clown dolls, so that.
I do. I have something I can name drop.
Do so.
Listen to the indie, I guess it's a podcast. Listen to the Scarlet Owl Tavern on YouTube. We have well over 100 episodes. You won't find me until the last season.
Hell yeah.
Better late than never.
It has been wonderful getting to know you in this little hole of time, Jack.
It's been great to meet you. I hope to see you again one day. I'm on
Yes.
nothing. I live under a stone in Florida, of all places.
Yeah. Yeah.
R.I.P.
Right-wing hellhole, if ever I heard of one.
Hey, but
And with
my
that-
town was one of the first trunk stores. We got that going for us.
Hey, that's cool. I heard he's the president, man.
Yeah.
R.I.P. On that note, write poetry, make art, love your demons, Ave Satanas.